to see you all this morning. I've been studying. I'm continuing to study. I just passed my one of my Microsoft certs, Azure Administrator. I passed that on Wednesday, so I'm psyched about that. And there were more videos in this series I was studying, but I booked my test. I'm like, well, just go take the test, and if you fail, you can finish watching the videos and take it again. Well, I passed, and now I'm going back and finishing the rest of the videos because there's other interesting stuff in what they're sharing. So yeah, it's too weird. I can't do that. So I was watching that this morning. So my head's already half full before we come on here. I'm still figuring all this out.
Could you could you have the brothers who are tuning in to introduce themselves?
Yeah, let's go and do that. Alan?
Hello, Alan Clark, Kill Winning Cross, Hudson Morris, number 80, King George in Caroline County, Virginia.
Glad to meet you.
Rick?
I'm Rick Rao. I'm the secretary of Twin Falls Lodge, Grand Historian of the Grand Lodge of Idaho, and Worshipful Master of the Idaho Lodge of Research.
Awesome. All right. Well, let me go ahead and do the official start here then. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Virginia Research Lodge's September 6th unstated meeting. We appreciate you coming watching us on YouTube sometime in the future. If you're watching me on YouTube, then please like and subscribe. I think everybody here is already in all these things, but I'll post it anyway. The link in the chat, I have our Facebook group. If you're not already a member, we have all our papers there. And then we have the Research Lodge website where we have papers. And I promise we are working on a new version of the website. It's a lot involved, and I'm trying to work on that on the side. But at some point, we're going from SharePoint to something else. So I keep teasing that. And then our YouTube channel, where we have all of our YouTube videos get uploaded to. It's a dedicated channel. It was my own channel for a while. And I've created a new channel just for the Research Lodge. And then my email, if you are not in Facebook, to get in touch with me. But you already know me here. So, Bob, if you want to go and introduce yourself, go on and get started.
Mm-hmm. I am Bob Uzzel. I'm a native of Waco, Texas. I have 3 degrees from Baylor University, BA, MA, and PhD. I got my start in masonry in Waco Lodge number 92. In 2023, I received my 50-year pin in Waco 92. And I've been in various houses, both on the predominantly white side and also with Prince Hall masonry. And I can go in detail about that, but I don't really have the time today. But the reason I chose this topic is because it deals with an institution in a town where I dearly love, and I got some pictures. So if I can start my.
You're on mute, Bob. So this is the part that we edit out. So if you're watching on YouTube, you won't see this. We're just going to go right to Bob with no technical delays.
trying to, I made the PowerPoint last night. I'm just trying to find it.
Okay. Take your time.
I mean, is Anthony here?
Anthony.
Okay, I got it.
Okay.
Can y'all see it?
Nope, not yet.
Okay,
Just hit
that's
share down at the bottom there.
okay. Where's the share?
If you're on Windows, it should be down at the bottom. Should be a green button.
Oh, I see it.
Yep.
Now can y'all see it?
You're sharing, but yeah, there it is. Yep. You are good to go.
Okay. This is got several pictures here. And by the way, I want to thank my friend, brother Todd Bruce, who is a funeral director in Pulaski, Virginia, who provided a copy of the history of this lodge and also some pictures that I'm using. According to this first PowerPoint, the town of Pulaski sprang up at the coming of the railroad and was first known as Martin's Tank. Governor John Floyd lived nearby. The county seat was moved there from New Bern in 1894. The town, like the county, was named for Count Casimir Pulaski, killed in the Siege of Savannah, 1779. It was incorporated in 1885, and was that 86? Zinc and iron were early industries.
Hey,
Why did I choose this topic?
Bob, if you want to hit slideshow to make those bigger, if you want to do it that way.
Okay, my brother-in-law was telling me about that last night. Let me
Down
see.
at the bottom, right before the zoom.
There's okay.
I saw it a second ago.
Well, no, that's not it. Is that it?
Let me see. My screen's covering it up.
Come on.
It's right next to the zoom. The little it's like a little TV on a stand. Right next to the minus, next to the zoom, down on the lower right.
Okay.
You see that?
Can y'all see it?
Yeah, I don't think you hit the. You got more than one screen? You only have one monitor? Okay. Yeah, if you go down there at the bottom where it says zoom, where there's the zoom, there's the plus and minus. To the left of the minus, there's a little projector screen, a little projector icon. All the way down to the bottom right.
Screen sharing meeting.
No, not in your PowerPoint.
Oh.
On your PowerPoint. In the lower right, next to the zoom, right next to the minus, to the left of the minus, there's.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, if you click that, it takes up the whole screen, and then you just click on the screen to move forward.
There it is.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, from beginning, right there. You should just say not now. Yep. There you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, that's the okay, it was in the summer of 1973. I was employed by Southwestern Company, a publisher based in Nashville, Tennessee. At the time, I was a new Mason, a new college graduate, having been raised to the sublime degree of Master Mason in Waco Lodge number 92, March 20th of that year, and received my Bachelor's Arts degree from Baylor University in May 18th of that year. Obviously, 1973 was a big year in my life. And both these institutions were in my hometown of Waco, Texas. I was recruited on the Baylor campus by the late Pat McLaughlin, a graduate student at the University of Texas at Austin at the time. And the day after graduation, I hit the road for Nashville, spent a week in Nashville in sales school. And then at the end, that Friday afternoon, when we got through with our school, I was informed I was going to Pulaski, Virginia, well, a town I'd never heard of. And we got there late that night and we found us a place to stay. My roommate and I did. And by the way, that summer marked my lifelong fascination with Appalachian religion, history, and culture. I met many Freemasons, most of whom were members of Pythagoras Lodge number 239. I hope to return to Pulaski within the next few years. I wanted to go in 2023 because that was the 50th anniversary, but some things came up and I wasn't able to. But I will let everybody at part of the Virginia Research Lodge know, and maybe some of y'all can come over there but we'll say more about that later. Pulaski is located along the New River, which is reported the second oldest river in the world. And it has a very interesting history. New Bern became the county seat first. Then 1854, the Virginia-Tennessee Railroad came through the county, led to considerable industrial developments. Then came the war between the states. Virginia voted to secede from the Union on April 17th of 1861. Each county had its own military company, and Pulaski County, it was called the Pulaski Guards. At Richmond, this company was assigned to the 4th Virginia Regiment. And at the time, the only Masonic Lodge in Pulaski County was Henry Clay Lodge number 165 at New Bern, which was chartered on December 15th, 1857. All the Masons who were part of the Pulaski Guards were members of this lodge. And in 1879, coal was discovered in the area. The Bertha Inn and Zinc Company began business at Martin's Tank. This and other foundries promoted the development of these other businesses. And in 1886, Martin's Tank became Pulaski and the town was incorporated. And by the way, as I mentioned before, it was named after Casimir Pulaski, a Polish patriot who fought in the American Revolution. We're not 100% sure, but there are circumstantial evidence indicating that Pulaski was a Mason. When Lafayette laid the cornerstone of the monument erected in Pulaski's honor in Savannah, Georgia, in 1824, a full Masonic ceremony took place. And there are some who claim that Pulaski was a member of the Army Lodge in Maryland. There's a Masonic Lodge in Chicago named Casimir Pulaski Lodge number 1167. A brochure issued by that lodge claims he obtained the degree of Master Mason on June 8, 1779 and was buried in full Masonic honors. Now, we don't have any primary documents to back that up, but he is reportedly to have been a Mason. Well, it was 10 years after Pulaski was incorporated that a fire at the courthouse in New Bern, the county seat, was moved to Pulaski as a new stone courthouse was completed. And several members of Henry Clay Lodge affiliated with Pythagoras Lodge number 239. And so there were, one of them was James N. Bonsack, who was call Captain Jimmy. He was a Confederate veteran, and his pamphlet, The Memoirs of a Member of the Stonewall Jackson Brigade. Lodge historian Duval Siegel donated a copy of the document to the Lodge's archives. And of course, during the Gilded Age, World War I, and the Great Depression, like all communities, Pulaski had its share of challenges. And there was some businesses came, some left. In World War II, there were 94 soldiers from Pulaski County who gave their life for their country. During the latter half of the 20th century, furniture and textiles became a major industry. Pulaski Furniture began in Pulaski, Virginia. I remember when I was there in 1973, there was Pulaski Furniture and Coleman's Furniture, and one of the biggest employers was Jefferson Mills. I'm sure a lot of that has changed since then. It was in 1970 the New River Community College in nearby Dublin opened. And it was in 73, the same year I was there, that White Motors, located at the center of Pulaski County along Interstate 81, and that did considerable for the community. The 21st century was marked by a considerable economic transition as furniture and textile industries declined, but the old Victorian downtown area received much needed development. And a lot of organizations, of course, there were many business, schools, churches established. And it was on December 20th, 1882, that Grandmaster Reuben Morrell Page granted a dispensation for a lodge at Martin's Tank in Pulaski County. December 12th, 1883, Grandmaster Henry W. Murray granted a charter to Pythagoras Lodge number 239. And there were a number of charter members, of course, like everywhere else. The lodge was named for the Greek philosopher, mathematician, astronomer who traveled widely and was allegedly initiated into the solar mysteries of the Egyptians. I think most every person who's ever taken geometry had learned the Pythagorean theorem. But in responding to the question for what's our name, the Historical Committee of Pythagoras Lodge gave a brief biography of their namesake, whom they described as a promulgator of Masonic principles which persist even to this day. And they met on the second floor of a frame building above a store owned by J.C. Howard, a charter member. They moved to various locations over time. At one point, they shared a building with the First Methodist Church, and then they faced a fire in the 1890s. Then they held their first meeting on January the 4th, 1897, on the floor of Loan and Trust Company, owned by L.S. Calfee, located in the southwest corner of Commerce and Valley Streets. And speaking of Valley Street, that picture right there is 150 Valley Street in Pulaski, Virginia. Does that have anything to do with Pythagoras Lodge? As far as I know, it does not. But that in 1973, this was the site of Connie's boarding home, where I lived during the 3 months that I was in Pulaski. By the way, the job I had was not an easy job. It involved selling books door to door, 75 to 80 hours a week, straight commission. But it was a good job, and I did quite well at it, and helped me finance the coming year of graduate school at Baylor. And Mrs. Connie Burns died a number of years ago, and the boarding house has been closed. And I'm not sure what, if anything, that building is being used for today. And that is a picture of the lodge hall of Pythagoras Lodge number 239. And it was in 1909 that the lodge accepted the offer of SM Lyons to build a suitable lodge room on the second floor of a building on 2nd Street. And they were there from 1909 to 1941. There was also the Royal Arts Chapter number 39, which was chartered December 25th, 1896. Both of them used the Women's Club in Pulaski. And by the way, being from Texas, I found the terminology a little confusing. When I got back, I asked my lodge secretary, I said, up there in Virginia, I hear y'all talking in the York Rite about the chapter and council, and up there they just call it the chapter. And he said, well, there's some places they don't have a council. And apparently that was the case. I guess one had to go to like Roanoke for the Royal and Select Masters. I understand that's where they would go for the Scottish Rite and Shrine. But then there was also the Order of the Eastern Star that was formed on September 26 of 1946. And it was chartered in 1947, met at the Woman's Club. And at that time, the Lodge, the Royal Arts Chapter, and the Eastern Star each paid 1/3 of the rent. And when it was not available, Masonic school was held in the Elks club room. And that is the book that I use, one of my principal sources, the history of Pythagoras Lodge number 239. It was published in 1965, so obviously a lot of history has transpired since then. Brother Todd Bruce sent me a copy, which I treasure very much. By the way, it arrived in the mail on May 22nd this year, which made it for me a perfect birthday gift. And the
Hey, Bob, excuse me, that's a little blurry. Is that just distorted?
yeah,
We can't read it.
I'll actually show you a picture of it. I got it here after I get through the presentation. I agree, it's blurry. That's a book, another book I used on the history of Pulaski, Images of America series. They got books published by these people, local histories from all over the country. And one thing I noticed in this book right here is that I knew that in addition to the Masonic Lodge in Pulaski, Pythagoras Lodge, there was also a Prince Hall Lodge there. I've been told by the Prince Hall, Virginia, it's no longer active. And there was an Oddfellows Lodge, an Elks Lodge, and a Moose Lodge. The Elks were, I think the Elks and the Moose are still active there. It's interesting that it was in the summer of '73, both of these organizations held conventions in Chicago. The Elks and the Moose voted to rescind their whites-only membership policies. I was sitting in an African-American home in Pulaski, Virginia, when I read in Jet magazine about the response of Hobson R. Reynolds, the Grand Exalted Ruler of the predominantly Black Improved Benevolent Protective Order of Elks, about the action by the White Elks. He saw it as a trick since they required each individual lodge to ratify the decision of the Grand Lodge. But fraternalism certainly has played an important role in Pulaski. Oh, and by the way, there's another organization that I am now a longtime member of. It's a fraternal insurance society known as Modern Movement of America. I published an article several years ago about Joseph Cullen Root, the founder, who was a Mason, belonged to several fraternal orders. He founded both Modern Movement of America and an offshoot known as Woodmen of the World. It was an agent for Modern Woodmen in Pulaski by the name of Herman Quessenberry who first told me about the organization. It's my understanding Herman Quessenberry was not a Mason, but he was an Oddfellow, and he worked for this fraternal insurance group, Modern Woodmen, for 25 years. But the groundbreaking for this building I showed you, it was April 5th, 1948. On May 29th of 48, the cornerstone was laid. The first meeting was February 21st, 1949. Various members contributed materials and labor. And some of them, as I read the history, I remembered meeting them. during my time in Pulaski. One of them was Okie Kidd. I remember him. He was a past master of the lodge, and he arranged some steel on the site through the courtesy of the Appalachian Power Company. And they had notes the People's National Bank and the Pulaski National Bank. And they laid many cornerstones. Such included the First Methodist Church in 1915, the Molick Memorial Chapter of this church or that's supposed to be chapel, in June 12th, 1940. Then from 1937, the chaplain of Pythagoras Lodge was Reverend Charles W. Sidnor, rector of Christ Episcopal Church. And in 1973, I remember meeting the Reverend Gary Gloucester, who was the rector at Christ Church. And to my knowledge, he was not a Mason, but he was an Elk. In 1996, he became suffragan bishop of the Episcopal Church in North Carolina. He retired in 2007. Gary is still living. I've not seen him since summer of 73, and I hope I get to see him again someday. I think he's still living in North Carolina, but that's a nice little church, the Christ Episcopal Church in Pulaski. And the local newspaper, the Southwest Times, there's a number of reports of lodge activities over the years. In 1958, members of Pythagoras voted not to rent their table to labor unions. This is somewhat ironic in view of the historic relationship between Freemasonry and the labor movement. It was on Labor Day that I recorded 2 videos on my YouTube channel about Freemasonry and organized labor. The Knights of Labor were one of the early unions in which Uriah Smith Stevens and Terrence Vincent Powderly were the respective leaders, who were also Freemasons, and also the interesting saga of the Parsons brothers of Texas, who were involved both in masonry and organized labor. But at your convenience, those are on my YouTube channel. And but there've been a found list of worshipful masters between 1883 and 1964, and I knew just a few of them. I mentioned Okie Kidd a while ago, and I knew Tommy Cavanis and Stanley Smith, and there may have been a few others. It's interesting, though. There was one Mason whom I met. I knocked on his door. He didn't buy a book from me, but he gave me a complimentary book instead, a copy of Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma. I really wish I remember that Mason's name, but I don't. And important work on local history had the following comments regarding race relations. African American workers played a critical role in the building of industrial Pulaski. Many African American families were headed north after the Civil War. For some, Pulaski was a stopping place before moving on to the more industrialized cities. For others, Pulaski became a place to settle, purchase land and homes, and build churches. Black entrepreneurs, educators, and professionals created strong communities. And the later pain of Jim Crow, however, would cut deeply into the collective memory. I met a lot of different pastors during that summer. The two that really stood out with a positive impression was the Episcopal priest, Gary Gloucester, and the Reverend John Crossland, the pastor of the Black First Baptist Church on Magazine Street. And we had some good visits, and I was 22 at the time, and had some problems in my first pastorate in Texas. So it was at that age, having been through what I'd been through. I talked with a lot of people about it, and Reverend Crossland said something that I never will forget. He said, "If the Lord calls you to preach, He has another church waiting for you," and He certainly did. The Grand Lodge of Virginia extended a limited recognition, what I call without visitation, to the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of Virginia in November 2001. Two of the main advocates of that was the late past Grand Master Cabell Cobbs, who he gave, I believe, a speech to the National Grand Masters Conference calling for Prince Hall recognition. And the other was Allen E. Roberts, whom I believe founded Virginia Lodge number 1777. I met him at a meeting in Washington, D.C. in 1987. I've read some of his writings, and Allen Roberts was indeed a very good man. But there's many possible there. I don't know if the Prince Hall Lodge in Pulaski, they had limited recognition without visitation in 2001. Then 2 years later, they allowed visitation. And I'm not sure if the two lodges, it was Pulaski Lodge number 154, Eppin AM was the Prince Hall Lodge. I do not know if they ever met together or not. I do know I found an obituary on Joseph Reed, who was a school teacher and principal and very active Prince Hall Mason, whom I'd met in 1973. And Joe he's had a very good reputation. But this book ends in 1965. I'm sure after that there were many meetings, initiations, and community events. And so let's just look at some of the other. That's one of the members of the lodge, a veteran who apparently got some special honor. And these are some members of the local Eastern Star chapter. And that's at one of the many dinners held at the lodge. I believe this was not just a lodge dinner, but one for the community that was free. This was a Grand Master's dinner. And this is some kind of Christmas event sponsored by it says Kazim I may be mispronouncing Karzane Characters. It's my understanding that Roanoke, which is not too far from there, has both a Scottish Rite Temple and Shrine Temple. And they may have had a Shrine Club in Pulaski for local members of the temple work together on different things. But that's one picture of the kitchen and of the lodge room. And most people like pancakes. I know I do. This says that every year in November we celebrate a holiday that epitomizes the history of our great country, where we give thanks for the many blessings we have received, not only for this year, but also for years past. As such, with this in mind, Pythagoras Masonic Lodge in the 40th Masonic District of Masonic Lodges would like to give thanks for the people of the New River Valley who have supported our lodges for over 126 years. We hold a free pancake breakfast Saturday, November 20th, 2010 from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the Pulaski Masonic Building, number 33 4th Street, Northwest Pulaski. Please come and welcome, enjoy good food and fellowship in the spirit of Thanksgiving for all that God has given. I've been to some Masonic pancake breakfast and some non-Masonic pancake breakfast. Well, pancakes are just good. That's what I think. But it's a lot of times it's a good fundraiser and also an opportunity for people to just sit down and enjoy one of another's company over good food. In 2024, Pythagoras Lodge, and I think this was the last formal meeting they held, it merged with Snowville Lodge number 159 in nearby Hiawassee, Virginia. And when I do get back up to Pulaski, hopefully in the next few years, I'm scheduled to retire from the church next year, and got a lot of things on my bucket list I want to do, but I've been wanting to go back to Pulaski ever since I left there. I could say that was a hard job, 80 hours a week, straight commission, but there's good money to be made. That Southwestern company out of Nashville. And it's not for everybody. The Bible says many are called, but few are chosen. But a lot of people have done well at it. And that put me in touch with this community. And I look forward to coming back there someday. I know that Henry Clay Lodge is still in existence in Dublin. And some of the other towns around there are Radford and Blacksburg and Christiansburg and Wytheville. Some of them may still have lodges, but I love the town of Pulaski. I love southwestern Virginia and Appalachia, and this was a very interesting study to conduct. Maybe when I do get up there, I can have access to some minutes and be able to eventually produce a much larger paper or maybe even a book. But this is my history of Pythagoras Lodge number 239 AF and AM of Pulaski, Virginia. Okay.
All right. All right. Thank you, Bob, for that. Let me ask a question. So how long were you actually active in Pulaski with the lodge?
I was there for 3 months. That's the only, it was.
That had an impact on you.
I'm a fanatic on dates and anniversaries. May 18th, 1973 was a Friday. I got my BA in religion and sociology at Baylor. Then the very next day, I hit the road. Spent that first night in Little Rock, Arkansas. Then I arrived that Sunday, May the 20th, in Nashville. And here's another little bit of trivia. I remember eating breakfast in Little Rock that morning and reading an obituary of a very interesting lady, Jeanette Rankin, who was the first woman to serve in Congress. She had died on May 18th. And she was from Montana. And when President Franklin D. Roosevelt called for a declaration of war against Japan after Pearl Harbor, Jeanette Rankin was the only member of either house to vote no. The entire Senate and all the House except her, she was a pacifist. And the reaction was so strong that against her that she had to hide in a phone booth and call congressional security to escort her to her office. But I just remember reading that obituary that morning at breakfast when I was eating pancakes at a restaurant in Little Rock, and we made it there. It was like May 25th would have been the day that we got through. We got arrived in Pulaski, and I remember Saturday, September 1st, was my last day of deliveries. But some person I'd missed, and I ended up taking the book by to her that September 2nd, that Sunday morning. And then we arrived back in Nashville that next day and spent the day, took several hours to get checked out and all the business taken care of. But by September 4th, I was back in Waco, and September 5th, I registered for classes and started the next chapter of my life as a graduate student in church state studies at Baylor. But and then September 26th 27th through the 29th, that's Thursday morning, I took the 4th degree, and that Saturday afternoon, we finished the 32nd degree. A bus picked us up at the Scottish Rite Temple and took us to Karam Shrine Temple, where we crossed the hot sands.
Interesting. I wanted to mention that you mentioned the council. So I was curious about this myself because I was raised here in Virginia and I joined the Royal Arch. Did you ever join the Royal Arch, Bob, or you?
Yes, on the Prince Hall side.
Oh,
And
okay.
I had, in fact, let me see, uh, I've been in and out. The latest chapter I was a member of lost their charter recently. And there's a whole story behind that. And uh, it was only in the last few years that Prince Hall in Texas had the Royal and Select Masters.
Right.
And uh, I've had the Knights Templar, but I hadn't been active in many years.
Well, the story behind it is because I was curious because in Virginia, you receive the council degrees in the Royal Arch. So there are 6 degrees. And so the Select and Royal Master are so if you join the chapter here, you get the council degrees. You just don't get Super Excellent Master.
So well, they do have chapter and council.
They do. And what I was always interested in, I wrote a paper for we have a Virginia Research Royal Arch chapter as well. And I wrote a paper for them about the council degrees to explain their origins and talk about it a little bit. And I wanted to answer the question. I always tell people, if you're writing a paper, if you're getting started, guys who want to start writing papers and they don't know how to get started, right? I say, think of a question that you haven't got an answer to about masonry and go find the answer yourself. Once you've answered the question, then you've written a good paper because you've answered it for you. And my question was, why is Virginia different and West Virginia? Turns out at the time that the grand chapters were starting up, in the Grand Royal Arch chapters, that Virginia basically decided, nah, we don't need council degrees. We're just going to confer the Master and the Royal and Select. And this is what they did. So why West Virginia? Because at the time, Virginia and West Virginia were one state. And that's another paper I plan to write someday about West Virginia lodges. During the War of Northern Aggression, as my local brothers here call it, when Virginia seceded from the Union, 13 counties in West Virginia did not. And they stayed in the Union and therefore became a new state. I think there were like 16 or more counties, but 13 voted not to secede, and several others with them kind of broke off. So West Virginia became its own state. The Grand Lodges just had to form a new Grand Lodge and a Grand Chapter and everything else. So they just continued our tradition. That's the only West Virginia's the same.
Did you ever have the pleasure of meeting Alan E. Roberts?
Sadly, no, I did not. And he was instrumental in.
He was an outstanding individual, and he in his book House Undivided: The Story of Masonry in the Civil War. He has a chapter on the formation of the Grand Lodge of West Virginia.
Oh, okay. I didn't look at that.
Yeah, I read his House Reunited, which deals with Freemasonry and Reconstruction.
Oh, cool. Well, I was going to say that both Cabell Cobbs and Alan Roberts were members of Virginia Research Lodge. Alan was our charter secretary and served for many, many, many years. And Cabell Cobbs was actually worshipful master of the Research Lodge the first time I attended. And he had just gone out as Grand Master.
Is this still the case? Another difference between Texas and Virginia that I learned when I was up there was that the memorization requirement in the Master Mason degree, one had to learn the Catechism, the EEA, and Fellowcraft, but for the Master Mason degree, it was optional.
That's true. Yes.
And in Texas, it's mandatory, though. I eventually got reinstated in Waco 92 after many years. But what I learned that one difference between back when I came through, the EA is the longest one. You had to do it all at once, but now they allow the new candidates to be tested over the work of the entered apprentice on 2 different nights, cut it down.
Oh, wow.
So
what happens? So you get raised in Texas and you haven't stood your master's catechism. So what do? Can you attend meetings? What's your status until you can stand your catechism?
You can attend meetings. You cannot. You can't hold office. You can't Scottish Rite or Shrine or anything like that.
Can you visit other lodges?
I believe so.
Okay. You're
Yeah,
paying dues though.
yeah. To be honest, well, wait a minute. It's I've never known anybody who went through and didn't learn it. If
Okay.
they, I think they have a year. If they went a year and didn't pass proficiency, they'd be out.
Oh, okay. I've always wondered that, how that works. Yeah, here it's optional and they stress it's important, but it's like most lodges kind of have their own unofficial rules, like, well, we're not going to put you in line unless you learned your catechism. Honestly, if you're going to be junior deacon, you have to know the ritual anyway. You might as well get your catechism out of the way because it's the same wording as what you're doing in the actual ritual. So, but we just basically encourage people very strongly. You're probably not going to go in line in any lodge if you haven't stood it, but most everybody gets it. Anyone who's active in the lodge gets, but it doesn't keep you. You could, in theory, just get raised, never do the catechism, and go join Royal Arch, Scottish Rite, whatever. We don't have any sort of restriction on you. I mean, you still pay dues, you still get a Masonic funeral, you can wear the rings, you can, there's no real limitations on you. And this is kind of how we are.
You live in Virginia Beach, right?
Correct. Yes.
I have a sister in Virginia Beach. In fact, she had a birthday recently. She just turned 90. Her first husband was in the Navy, and they never left.
Right.
But would you believe the summer I was there, I didn't get to see her the entire summer?
Really?
Pulaski in Virginia Beach, what's that, about 300 miles across the state?
Yep. It's quite a distance.
And working 5 days a week full time, then we had sales meetings in Lynchburg and in Roanoke.
Right.
As far as social activities, we just didn't have time for much.
Understood.
You devote your time to your job, and I'm going to make a lot of money. Then when I get back to school, I can party.
Right.
I got to not do this right now.
That's a good attitude. Well, so Blacksburg is not far from there. Go ahead.
Hold on
Sorry.
a second, please. Yes. About 10 minutes.
The lady is here to get, she needs to get that recliner.
Okay. Just talking to my wife.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I was saying Blacksburg is not too far from Roanoke. We have a new research lodge, Blue Ridge Lodge of Research, which was just chartered last year. And me and another member of our lodge joined, and we were charter members because we managed to join before their charter was granted. So we drove out there in February this year and visited them. It was like a 6-hour drive. And that's today. I can't imagine that. So yeah, it's an effort to get out to Roanoke. I go out there on occasion for things, but it is definitely a commitment to get out there.
I want to say Pulaski is about an hour's drive for Roanoke.
Which direction?
It's east or southeast.
Okay.
It's about 30 miles from the West Virginia line.
Okay.
But I've never been to West Virginia. I was there. We had discussed, my roommate and I talked about going over, just crossing the border, just so we could say we'd been there.
Right.
And one time I was working in Southern Virginia around Stewart and Spencer, and the guy I was working with took me across the border just so I could say I've been in North Carolina.
Right.
That was the only time there. Now, I went to South Carolina in 2012 because one of my books is called The Durhams of Fairfield, an African American genealogy. I did research in Fairfield County, South Carolina, and DeSoto Parish, Louisiana. And I live in Corsicana, Texas, but we're at my mother-in-law's house. My mother-in-law, by the way, is 92 years old today. And
wow.
And anyway, we're to get here to celebrate her birthday, and we're at her house. I'm scheduled to retire from the church next year, and we're going to be moving to Fairfield. And I'm hoping, again, there's a lot of things on my bucket list, and returning to Virginia is a big one.
If you make it out, definitely let us know. We'll make an effort to come attend a lodge with you. That'd be great. Hey, Rick, Alan, either of you have any questions or comments about today's presentation? You're on mute. So, well, looks like it was no, but
No questions. Nice presentation, no questions.
all right, Rick.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Well, Bob, I do feel bad we didn't have more people participating today, but we definitely will have this on YouTube, and you can let people know to come and watch it. I think it's great. It's a very, very personal insight on both Pulaski and the lodge. I really kind of like it. You gave a kind of an overview. It's your personal experience of interacting with them, but they sound like most of the lodges in Virginia. They come for a time. They're very active in the community, and then sometimes they just kind of fade out to the point where they end up merging with another lodge. It happens even here in the big city of Norfolk, where my mother lodge merged with another lodge just about 5 years ago. It just they
Well,
couldn't
I've
maintain.
always said it's better to have a few strong ones than a bunch of weak ones.
Yes, people get worried about numbers. Having a low number or just the name. We got to maintain our lodge memory. It's like, well, if you're just being remembered as that lodge that can't open the doors or can't confer the degrees, what memory are you preserving? I'd rather be in a lodge that's doing something,
Oh,
even if that means we only have 2-3 lodges in the city.
And at least I know sometimes in Texas, if one lodge merges with another lodge, the lodge they merge with allows them to post their artifacts and, this part of the history. We're not going to let this history die. We're going to keep this
Absolutely.
place. And these are a lot of memories and, whether it be a lodge or a church or whatever, even if it doesn't exist, it still exists in memory. And so it's, we all got precious memories of a lot of things.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, I really appreciate it, Bob. I thank you for spending time with us today. And we'll go and wrap it up. I want to thank you all for coming here. And those of you watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. I'll just give a quick what's coming up. Civil War Lodge Research is meeting in Richmond Randolph in October. So, Alan, if you want to join us for that. I've made an effort this year as Worshipful Master of Virginia Research to visit all 6 research lodges this year. And some of them I'd never actually visited before. So if I can make it to Civil War at Richmond Randolph or at their annual, they'll be at Babcock.
By the way, one thing that never
Yeah.
come up, does this lodge have any dues?
Which one? Ours?
Yes.
Yes, they're $20 a year.
Oh, okay.
Yep. We're all about $20 a year.
Well, I'll be glad to send that in.
Oh, absolutely. We can talk about that. Absolutely. So anyway, if I can make Civil War, that means I've made all 6 this year, which would be great. Yeah, I've really enjoyed traveling this year and visiting all parts of the state. We don't have any unstateds in October. There's several things going on. Virginia Research will be meeting at Kempsville here in Virginia Beach. And Vincent Carden will be talking about Freemasonry and the Boy Scouts. So that should be interesting. And then Peyton Randolph meets the end of the month. And then Jonathan Oliveras will be our next Zoom meeting, and that will be on November 1st. And I don't have a confirmation on what his topic is on. But he's from Yorktown Lodge, and that should be a good talk. And then we're getting into the annuals in December. All right, brothers, thank you all for coming. I look forward to seeing you all again here soon.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.